Former SABC board chairperson Bongumusa Makhathini has spoken openly about his term at the SABC. He's spoken about some political pressure that has often come, some death threats that were made against him as well. He ended his term on the 15th of October, and he joins us now in studio to reflect on that term. Mr. Makhathini, thank you for making time. Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
You're still wearing a suit even after the term, on a Saturday?
I have to.
You have to. Let's talk about that term. I mean, how do you characterize and describe your term? There's a lot that happened. You inherited an organization that was almost broken.
That's correct. It was quite challenging, but at the same time, inspiring in the sense that we had an opportunity with my colleagues to contribute in fixing one of the SOEs. And that spoke to us really implementing some of the recommendations that came out of the ad hoc committee from Parliament, the Public Protector's report, the SIU reports, the Auditor General report. So we had a number of analysis that was already done, which was then presented in the form of recommendations and reports. So we had to implement those. But also we had an opportunity to bring in the executive team that was really fit and had the prerequisite skills to lead the SABC. You will remember that when we took office in 2017 October, there was no CEO, there was no CFO, there was no COO. So we had an opportunity with my colleagues to bring in a team that could lead the SABC. And in that, we had an opportunity to put together a turnaround strategy. We were able to sort of implement that turnaround strategy up to where we are today.
Yeah, and when you want to build an efficient, well-functioning organization, you need a competent team of executives. Was there no pushback? Because we all know of how the SABC, historically, there is always political interference. Was there no pushback in terms of the people that the board appoints in these critical positions? Because historically, the governing party would often want people that are almost aligned to them. And how did you deal with that pushback, if there was?
We're very fortunate with my board because in 2017 October, there was a judgment from the High Court, Gauteng High Court, that SOS judgment of 2017, which basically gave powers and authority to the board that the minister was precluded from interfering or exercising any power in terms of the affairs of the SABC. So the appointment of the group CEO, the CFO and the COO was the role and the responsibility of the board. Of course, there will always be attempt, and this is what I say, in these kind of roles, it's not a question whether there will be political interference or not, or commercial interference or not. There will be. The key is how do you deal with it when it manifests itself. Yeah,
and previously it's crippled the organization, that kind of interference. So how did you deal with it?
My take is very simple. You've got to be very clear on what's your role and what's your mandate. And as a board, we had to be very clear what is expected of us and to make sure that everyone plays within and play within their lane, and not allow anyone to exercise powers that they don't really have. And I always say to people, governance is simple. You stick to the rules, you stick to the law, and you stick to the policies. The day you start to be very creative and operate outside of those prescripts, that's when you get yourself in trouble.
Yeah. One of the things you were praised for and commended for as the board was your appointment of Patiswa Mcopeni as the group executive for news and current affairs. A lot of people felt, she ensured the news offering gained credibility and also audience. And then something happened. There were disagreements, which ended up in her leaving the organization. What happened?
To be honest, Patiswa did an excellent job working with a collective and a team in restoring the credibility of our news. And what really happened was aired for everyone in public to see. And that process was led by the group CEO, which is basically the supervisor or the manager that she reported to. So she was then subjected to an independent process as an employee of the SABC. And I think everyone then will know what happened there. Yeah. But it had nothing to do with the board. It was an operational matter that was dealt with at an operational level. Yeah.
And I want to give you an opportunity to also just clarify, because one of her grievances concerned the CEO and you as board chairperson failing to respond to alleged attacks on her by the ANC's then Deputy Secretary General Jessie Duarte. When you were aware of what Jessie Duarte said to her, what did you do as the board chairperson and also as the CEO, your colleague?
Thank you for that question. Specifically when it comes to the late ANC Secretary, Deputy Secretary General, when she reported to me that the late ANC SG had tried to sort of like confront her at the election results center, I immediately called the ANC Deputy Secretary General to inquire and check with her what had happened. And she gave me her version, and that feedback was given back to Patiswa. So it is not correct that nothing was done. And again, from the Group CEO side, he also did his part to make sure that he attended to the concern that she had raised, and those were dealt with. Even to an extent where a formal complaint was sort of lodged with the IEC as part of the process that is defined. So that was done. And I'm confident because I saw the submission that was done. I have evidence of what the correspondence and the communication between me and the late ANC Deputy Secretary General.
Another concern was that you called her and told her that the SABC must do an interview with President Cyril Ramaphosa. Did you do that?
You would have seen that the board of the SABC set up a special committee, which then gave me and the complainant, Ms. Patiswa Mcopeni, an opportunity to present our case. And I presented my case, she presented hers. And that independent special committee of the board vindicated my position that there was no such interference in the news affairs of the SABC from my side.
But did you call her to say, interview President Cyril Ramaphosa?
If you look at my response that I provided, the CEO escalated an issue to me as the chairperson of the board, and that issue was, Chair, we had set up an interview with the president of the ANC, and we are basically, the president is on his way to our offices as per the arrangement that had been done and agreed upon at an operational level. Now, the CEO then escalated the matter to me to say, Chairperson, please intervene and assist, because I don't know now what to do. I then pick up a phone because I knew Patiswa well. We had a very professional, courteous relationship, and I spoke to her. And in me talking to her, and this is part of the record that I submitted in the special committee, I basically wanted to hear her side because the group CEO had given me his side. So she gave me her side, and she basically indicated to me that that interview was not arranged with her, and it won't happen because her team is not, the relevant people are not around. So that was her explanation that she gave to me. And as I said in my submission, I then said to her, I need to understand from her what was wrong with this interview, and if this interview in any form contravened SABC editorial policies, certainly I will support her.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
All right, we'll take a quick ad break, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation with Bongumusa Makhathini. I'll ask him about some of the regrets, some of the lessons as he walks away from the SABC as having served as board chairperson. Stay with us here on Newzroom Afrika. Welcome back. We're in conversation with the former SABC board chairperson, Bongumusa Makhathini. Thank you for staying with us. So you were explaining and just clarifying what happened around the so-called pressure that you had put on her. You were explaining where you were coming from as board chairperson. Before we talk about the lessons and regrets, I want you to weigh in on another claim that was presented by Ms. Mcopeni, that you had shared information about the Zulu royal family and the fights that were going on. And you were saying, well, this is an additional information you can use as the newsroom. And she feels that in you sharing that information, that was you sort of putting pressure on them and interfering in the operations of the newsroom. Did you share that information, and if so, what was the intention?
First, let me clarify. There was no pressure put on her. The phone call was no way done in a manner where pressure was exerted on her. Phoning someone because a matter has been escalated to you, it's no pressure. It was one phone call. There is no way that one phone call can be categorized as pressure.
What matter was escalated to you?
As I had indicated, that there was an interview that was arranged with the president of the ANC, and the CEO had escalated that matter to me for me to intervene and assist. So I made one phone call to her.
So you've never shared any information about the Zulu royal family?
I was clarifying the first point about the phone call.
Yeah.
In terms of the Zulu royal family, me and her, we had a very close relationship, like I've said. And now and again, she will consult me on a number of things, and we'll talk about stuff. And me talking to her about anything, it had nothing to do with me exerting pressure or directing her. And this is what exactly the special committee of the board found, that there was no such thing as pressure, there was no such thing as interference.
But did you share information with her about what was happening in the Zulu royal family?
I did share with her information.
And what was the intention of that?
The intention was for her to have access to that information, but also the truth of the matter is the SABC needs to cover a variety of views. And the truth of the matter is anyone can share information, all right, as long as there is no directive to say you will cover this. There was no such.
But is that not blurring of lines when the board chairperson sends that kind of information to the director of news, so to speak? So in other words, why are you not sending that information to the CEO and saying, hey, your job is to oversee that department of the SABC. Are you making sure that we're covering all the sides? When you go directly to the director of news, isn't that blurring the lines?
If you look at the nature of the relationship we had, there were instances where herself escalated issues to me direct as a chairperson. Mm-hmm. So that's the relationship that we had. But the good thing is, with the process that we embarked on, that was led by the special committee, there were some recommendations, which is a good thing, that we will all learn through experiences and events. And one of the things that the special committee has recommended is that maybe there is a need to develop some guidelines and some form of like a framework as to how do board members engage with the newsroom people in an informal way. Mm-hmm. So that process, I'm hoping that the new board that's coming in will be able to take those recommendations and consider them.
Yeah. You've spoken about death threats on your life, on your family. What happened there? And do you know who was behind those?
When death threats came to me and some of the executives, we requested the assistance of the crime intelligence to assess how safe we were. And that happened at the time when there was an attempt on the life of the head of internal audit, Mr. Zigote Tami. Mm-hmm. After that, then Minister Begicele arranged a meeting with his team to basically do an assessment. Mm-hmm. And out of that assessment, it was then confirmed that my life was a threat. And a number of things happened. And to a certain point, I needed to have bodyguards because of the severity of the threat that my life I was facing. And a lot of things happened, and I wouldn't want to come here and level allegations against people, but that was confirmed, and this is why at some point I had to have close protection for a period of a year.
What do you think was behind the death threat? Because no one just decides, oh, we want to risk the life of Bongumusa Makhathini. You must have done something or was doing something. What do you think it is that you did or you were doing that got people to start looking at you in that manner and wanting to pose a risk on you and your family?
When you look at where SABC was and the things that had to be done to get SABC back on track, whenever there is chaos, there are people who enjoy that chaos because they can hide. But when the tide is down, that's when then you can really see what's happening. So as we're implementing, for an example, the SIU recommendations, as we're implementing what the public protector had recommended, contracts were being declared null and void, those that were irregular, of course, and the direction of the SABC was being changed, informed by the turnaround strategy that was agreed. So in doing that process, certain people had to be held accountable. And certain people that used to enjoy certain privileges, those privileges were taken away because they were not given and awarded in a legitimate manner. So in that way, in that form, you will have a lot of people that were not very pleased with the direction we were taking. But we were very clear as a board that this is what needed to be done, because as a director of any organization, your allegiance and your commitment should be to the organization that you are a director to, not a political party, not whoever may have deployed you there, but to do your best to turn around the organization that we were tasked and expected to address.
Yeah. So there are new board members that hopefully are going to be confirmed by Parliament who will take up office, and Patiswa is one of the people that were interviewed. Would you vouch for her to be appointed as one of the board members?
As you said, it is the job of the Portfolio Committee to appoint board members, and it goes through the National Assembly, and the President will appoint the chairperson and deputy chairperson. It's not my place to talk about who should be appointed and who shouldn't. But what I can say, it's important when you're appointing these boards for any entity that you get people with the relevant experience that have the right sort of like level of maturity and understanding to add value. And whoever can do that, I'm not the one to decide who should and who shouldn't.
And I'm asking for a personal view. Having worked with her, do you think she can add value on the board of the SABC?
I don't think my personal view matter on this one. I would want to leave it with the Portfolio Committee.
Okay, I'll leave it there now. Any regrets? Any lessons walking away from the SABC?
You know, taking up the chairperson role at the SABC, I did this after I had been in a number of other boards. I learned to dance with an irked dancer.
Yeah.
I learned the importance of consulting extensively. You know, I'm from a private sector, and that's where I've gone back. You know, in private sector, things tend to move very fast because, you know, you make a decision and you move. But at the SABC, if you look at the retrenchment process, how long the consultation took, it took very long. But I also realized that there is power in engaging people, even those that are opposed to you. That's why I was comfortable to go meet with political parties and share with them where we were as the SABC board and where we were going. And, of course, they will give input. That's not directive or instructions, but to hear their side, it just enriched the decision and the journey. So, to be honest, I'm very grateful to have had an opportunity. But, of course, it put a lot of strain on my family. And I owe it to my wife and my kids for tolerating this phase of my life for 5 years, where they didn't have a normal life because of all the death threats and what we had to go through. So I really want to thank my wife and my kids and my family and those who supported me as Bongumusa, and those who supported the SABC board and the employees of the SABC who really committed and dedicated themselves during those trying times. And I think with their sacrifices and everyone's contribution, we've been able to keep the ship sailing. Yeah.
And in hindsight, is there one thing you think you could do or could have done differently? Doesn't have to be necessarily regret, but there are always lessons in any journey that we take, right?
You know, if I look at every decision we've taken, I have no regrets. Because wherever we made wrong decisions, because leadership is about decisions, we were able to correct those decisions whenever we felt that was not the right decision. But of course, you make it based on the information that you have at the time. So I think as a collective, we've done exceptionally well. We've been able to stabilize the SABC, reduce the losses from over 1.6 billion rand. It's down to like 200 million. The SABC is stable. We've got credible people leading that organization. And it's positioned differently. I mean, we've run through 2 elections, and those elections were flagged as fair from a coverage point of view. And that's actually credit to the work that the board and the SABC employees have done.
Yeah. Would you do it again?
No, I wouldn't do it again. I'm a one-term chairperson.
No, not necessarily the board chairperson of the SABC, but working for a state-owned enterprise. Given what you've come to learn about the bureaucracy, the pressure, political interference, do you think you'll be of service to government again? The truth of the matter, this is our country and it's all what we have. If we get so intimidated by the behavior of politicians and what people do, then we are giving up on this country. And when we give up, our children will have nothing to inherit. So we have to have those things that we're prepared to die for and that we're prepared to fight for. And this is one of those things we have to fight for. This is our country. We have to get it to work. Right.
No matter what it takes.
Bongumusa Makhathini, thank you for coming to studio. Now, still to come here.